My ex-mother-in-law sent church people to harass my daughters, so I exposed her lies. My ex-mother-in-law sent church people to harass my daughters, so I exposed her lies. I never thought that the woman I once called Mom would one day become the reason my daughters cried themselves to sleep. But life, as I've learned, can twist in the most unexpected and painful ways. My name is Claire. I'm 46 years old, and a year ago, my husband of 20 years died in an accident. Most people assume death brings peace, forgiveness, and maybe even unity to the family. But in my case, it only opened the door to all the lies, betrayals, and cruelty that had been waiting to come out. You see, before his death, I found out that my husband, the man I had loved, supported, and built a home with, had been cheating on me. And not just cheating. He had fathered 2 children with another woman. She was younger than me, and to make the story even more tragic, she also died in the same accident that took him. Suddenly, there were 2 little boys left behind, and my daughters and I were expected to take responsibility for them. My daughters, Emily and Grace, were 17 and 15 at the time. They adored their father. Finding out about his affair shattered them completely. I still remember the day Emily came home crying, holding his phone in her hand, whispering, "Mom, I think Dad is cheating on you." The look in her eyes, the pain, the confusion, it broke something inside me. My daughters didn't just lose their father in that accident. They lost the man they thought he was. But as painful as all that was, nothing could have prepared me for what came next. My ex-in-laws, his parents, turning against us. My ex-mother-in-law, Martha, and my ex-father-in-law, George, were in their late 70s, deeply religious, respected in their church community, and masters at pretending to be the perfect Christian couple. Behind closed doors, though, they were controlling, manipulative, and judgmental. When my husband died, instead of comforting my daughters, they started blaming them. They claimed Emily and Grace were responsible for their father's death because they stressed him out with their disrespect after discovering his affair. It was cruel, heartless, and beyond reason. Then they took it further. They tried to gain custody of my daughters, arguing that I was mentally unfit because I had filed for divorce before his death. At the same time, they demanded to move into my home so we could all heal as a family. The nerve of it all still makes me tremble with anger. Of course, I refused both requests. I wasn't going to let those people anywhere near my children again. The custody battle went to court, and while that was dragging on, they decided to get creative in their revenge. There's a weekend farmers market in town, a small, lovely place where families go to buy fresh produce, baked goods, and handmade crafts. It's the kind of place filled with laughter and music, the kind of place that should feel safe. That Saturday was special. It was Grace's 15th birthday. Since her actual party was later in the month, I gave her some money and told her she could buy anything she wanted from the market. She was so happy, skipping between stalls, buying chocolates and little trinkets. For the first time in months, I saw her genuinely smiling. An hour later, my phone rang. Her voice was shaking. "Mom, there are some ladies here. They're saying awful things about you and Grandma and Grandpa. They won't let me leave." I froze. My heart started pounding as I ran through the crowd, Emily right behind me. And when I found her, my blood ran cold. 6 older women, all neatly dressed, holding church pamphlets, had surrounded my crying daughter. They were shouting at her, calling her unchristian, accusing her of turning her back on family, saying she was heartless for refusing to spend time with her grandparents or be a good sister to her so-called baby brothers. I saw red. I pushed through the crowd, stood between those women and my daughter, and told Emily to take her sister, pay for her things, and go straight to the car. I could handle this. Then I turned to those women I vaguely recognized from my ex-in-law's church, and I told them, very calmly, that if they didn't leave us alone, I'd make sure their pastor knew exactly what kind of harassment they were condoning. They didn't back down. One of them said, "You should be ashamed. Your husband's parents are good Christian people. You should obey them like a good wife would. You're poisoning your daughters." That word, obey, snapped something inside me. My husband was dead. I didn't owe anyone obedience, not after everything I'd been through. I raised my voice. "You don't know anything about my life or what those people have done to us. So you can take your judgment and your fake righteousness and shove it where the sun doesn't shine." It turned into a shouting match, and eventually the market organizers asked us to all leave. Those women followed me to the parking lot, still yelling, while I got my daughters in the car and drove away. That night, after my girls went to bed, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, scrolling through my phone, shaking with anger. Then I got a message from a friend who still attended that same church. He told me what was going on. My ex-mother-in-law had written a massive post on the church's Facebook group, a long, dramatic sob story about how my daughters and I had abandoned her and George, how we were leaving them homeless and heartbroken. She claimed we had taken all her son's money and life insurance, and that we refused to take in his 2 poor orphan sons. But the worst part? She lied about how those boys came into the world. Instead of admitting her son had an affair, she claimed the other woman was our surrogate, that I rejected the babies because they were boys and not girls. I felt sick reading it. She had completely twisted the story, and people were believing her. The comments were full of pity and sympathy for her. People were calling me cruel, heartless, and anti-Christian. Some even offered her donations and to pray for the lost mother and daughters. That was the moment I decided I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. If Martha wanted to weaponize lies, I would fight back with the truth. The next morning, I took a day off work and went to a print shop. I pulled out all the evidence I had kept from the divorce, the texts, the emails, the photos. Every disgusting piece of proof that showed who my husband really was and how his parents had enabled his behavior. There were pictures of him kissing his mistress in our living room, text messages between him and his parents discussing how to keep it quiet until the divorce, emails from Martha telling me I was a failure as a wife and that if I had obeyed my husband properly, he wouldn't have cheated. And worst of all, messages from my in-laws calling my daughters bastards and saying it was their fault their father died because they told me about the affair. I had everything. I printed hundreds of copies on glossy paper, every photo, every message, every proof. Then, when I got home, I spent hours putting them together in little binders. The covers were designed to look just like the hymn books the church distributed every Sunday. And on the first page, I placed the photo of my husband and his mistress kissing, under which I neatly wrote, "The true love story of ex-husband's name and affair partner's name." It was poetic justice. The next Sunday, I dressed nicely, drove to the church, and walked in like nothing was wrong. No one paid much attention to me. After all, I used to attend there years ago. I went straight to the back of the church where they kept the songbooks for anyone who forgot theirs. And quietly, I replaced the entire stack with my special editions. Then I left. That afternoon, chaos erupted online. My phone started buzzing non-stop. One friend after another sent me screenshots from the church's Facebook group. The gossip mill was in full swing. Apparently, people had started opening the hymn books during service and found photos of my late husband cheating on me. They found the texts, the emails, the proof of the lies. The shock spread like wildfire. Within hours, the entire congregation knew the truth. The same people who had once called me a sinner were now calling my ex-husband a disgrace and a hypocrite. The affair partner was labeled a Jezebel, and my ex-in-laws, who had pretended to be victims, were suddenly shunned by their own community. Even the pastor had to step in to stop the hateful comments. But it was too late. The damage was done. What surprised me most was that even in their hypocrisy, some people still found a way to pity me. They said things like, "It's understandable that she lost her faith after such betrayal. Hopefully one day she'll find the light again." But honestly, I didn't care. I wasn't looking for their approval. I just wanted peace for my daughters. A few days later, 2 letters arrived in the mail, handwritten apologies from 2 of the women who had harassed Grace at the market. They said they were deeply sorry for believing lies and hoped we could forgive them. Another letter came from the pastor himself, inviting us to attend church for spiritual healing and support. I never replied. As for my ex-in-laws, things didn't end well for them. Martha's friends stopped visiting. George stopped showing up at the church altogether. Then Martha made a post on her personal Facebook page, a long rant about how people have no respect for the elderly anymore, how she was being alienated and shamed, and how no one cares for a grieving mother. She ended it by saying she wished her great son was still alive because he would have taken care of her. The irony made me laugh. My husband couldn't even take care of his own marriage, let alone anyone else. I never replied to her. I didn't need to, because deep down, I knew the truth was finally out there. The lies had crumbled. The masks had fallen. And for the first time since my husband's death, I felt free. Emily and Grace are doing better now. Therapy has helped them process their anger and grief. We've built new routines, new memories, new traditions. Grace still loves going to the market, and Emily's planning to study psychology next year. She says she wants to help other teenagers who've gone through family trauma. Sometimes we still talk about what happened, about how pain can come from the people we least expect. But I tell them the same thing every time. Revenge doesn't always mean hurting someone. Sometimes it's just about setting the truth free and walking away without looking back. And that's exactly what I did. Moral of the story: when people use lies and manipulation to hurt you, don't fight them with hate. Fight them with truth. Because truth, once revealed, burns brighter than any revenge could ever do.